I don't want you to go on this trip, I said, my voice low but firm, trying to control the frustration that had been building inside me for weeks. My fingers traced the edge of the countertop, grounding myself in the smooth, cold surface as I spoke. Every breath felt heavier, like I was dragging the weight of every unresolved conversation we'd had before. Kate spun around from the sink, arms crossed, her expression already defensive. Her eyes, once soft and comforting, had turned sharp and unreadable. Paul, this again? It's a business trip. I told you already. Nothing is going to happen. I clenched my fists at my sides, breathing slowly, as if I could steady the storm inside me by sheer will alone. But the memory of that night she confessed, her boss had kissed her, burned in my mind like a fresh wound that refused to heal. She said it meant nothing, that she shut it down immediately. I tried to believe her. I really did. Every day since, though, doubt lingered in every quiet moment, whispering the same question over and over. What if? You mean like nothing happened last time? When your boss crossed the line? I asked, my voice barely steady, each word laced with a bitterness I couldn't hide. My stomach twisted with each syllable, the images I tried to suppress bubbling back up. Her eyes narrowed, a flicker of irritation sparking in them. I told you I shut it down immediately. He apologized. I thought you trusted me. I did, I said, voice tightening with every syllable, until you told me that story, and now you expect me to be okay with you going on a trip with him? Alone? She rolled her eyes and let out a sharp breath, the kind of exhale that said she was done with this conversation before it even began. It's work, Paul. I worked hard to get here. Are you seriously going to keep punishing me for something I already handled? This isn't punishment, Kate. It's about boundaries. You don't go on a trip with someone who disrespected you and us. The words came out harsher than I intended, but the hurt behind them was real. You're just insecure, she snapped, her voice sharp enough to cut through steel. Your fragile ego can't handle my success. My chest tightened, a familiar weight settling over me, like an old unwelcome friend. It's not about your success, Kate. It's about respect. Her arms crossed tighter, her body coiled like a spring. I make 3 times what you do, Paul. You don't get to control my career because you feel threatened. The words hit me harder than any slap. My throat closed up as I swallowed hard, my voice dropping to a low murmur that barely carried across the room. It's not about money, Kate. It's about loyalty and trust. She turned away, dismissing me with the movement of her shoulders. I can't keep having this same argument, she muttered, her voice thick with finality. I'm going on the trip. End of discussion. I stood there, staring at her back as the silence grew heavy between us. The woman I once shared dreams with had become a stranger I no longer understood, and for the first time, I wondered if I ever truly had. The rest of the evening was filled with an unbearable stillness. I watched her move through the house, packing, checking her phone, avoiding my gaze like I wasn't even there. Every little action felt like a dagger, cutting deeper into the already gaping wound between us. The ticking clock on the wall echoed through the room, a reminder of how little time was left before she would leave. Later that night, as she packed her suitcase in the bedroom, I found myself standing in the doorway, arms crossed, watching silently. Her clothes were folded neatly, her movements precise and detached, as if she had done this 1,000 times without thinking twice. I wanted to believe I was imagining things, that I was being paranoid, but deep down, instinct screamed louder than reason ever could. When she left the room to grab something from the bathroom, I couldn't stop myself. I stepped closer, drawn by a gnawing sense of dread. My fingers hesitated at the zipper, but the need to know outweighed the guilt of invading her privacy. Slowly, I opened the suitcase. At first, it was nothing unusual. Blouses, skirts, a pair of heels neatly tucked to the side. Then I saw them hidden beneath a silk blouse, a pack of condoms and a pair of metal handcuffs. The air rushed out of my lungs like I'd been punched in the gut. I stood there, frozen, staring at the undeniable evidence of betrayal tucked so carelessly among her belongings. She hadn't even tried to hide them well. My thoughts spiraled. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe I was misunderstanding something. But no excuse came to mind. No logical reason made sense of what I was seeing. And then, Another thought hit me even harder. The handcuffs. What was she doing with those? We had never used anything like that before. Did she have some secret fetish she never shared with me? The idea tore at me from the inside. Was she exploring desires with someone else that she never trusted me enough to reveal? The betrayal cut deeper with each question that had no answer. I began to wonder if I really knew the woman I had married at all. The minutes felt like hours before she returned, and I quickly zipped the suitcase closed, stepping back as if nothing had happened. But everything had changed. The ground beneath me had shifted, and I was too numb to react. That night I lay awake in bed while she slept soundly beside me, unaware, or perhaps indifferent, to the storm raging inside me. Every breath she took felt like a betrayal, every peaceful sigh a reminder of the secret she carried so casually. The next morning I refused to drive her to the airport. My anger had settled into a cold resolve. I watched from the doorway as she ordered a ride, dragging her suitcase toward the door without offering me so much as a glance. She didn't ask why I wasn't coming with her, and I didn't offer an explanation. At the threshold, she turned briefly. "I'll call you when I land," she said, her voice devoid of any real warmth. I gave a stiff nod, refusing to say the words that burned on the tip of my tongue. The door closed behind her, and for the first time, the house felt like it truly belonged to me, silent, heavy, and hollow in her absence. The house felt emptier than ever. Each room echoed with memories of better times, her laughter in the kitchen, quiet evenings spent on the couch, whispered conversations before falling asleep. But now those memories felt tainted. I sat in the living room, staring at nothing in particular. The evidence I had found in her suitcase played on a loop in my mind. The condoms, the handcuffs, the lies. A part of me wanted to believe there was a reasonable explanation, but deep down, I knew better. Conflicted, I wrestled with what to do next. Should I confront her when she returned, demanding the truth? Or should I leave, walking away from the betrayal before it broke me completely? The thought of facing her, of hearing more lies spill from her lips, made my stomach churn. The hours dragged on. Every minute without her brought a strange sense of relief and sadness. By the time the sun began to set, I had made my decision. I packed my belongings quietly, methodically, leaving behind anything that wasn't essential. No dramatic goodbye, no final confrontation, just silence. I reflected on how much I had ignored for the sake of keeping the peace. Her late nights, the dismissive way she brushed off my concerns, the way she spoke of her boss with an edge of excitement she never had when talking about me. I had let those red flags slide because I didn't want to believe the woman I loved could hurt me this deeply. But she had. When Kate returned home, she found nothing but an empty house and a note on the kitchen counter. No explanations, no accusations, just the absence of the man who once loved her more than anything. And in that silence, I found the only kind of closure she would ever give me.